What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Kelly from Bleakheart. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all. I'm happy to be a part of it.
Yep. In case you couldn't tell by the review I gave of Dream Griever, I really enjoyed this album. Excellent work. Do you just want to talk, I really want to know, what the thought process was behind the making of Dream Griever. Was there kind of a preconceived idea? How did, Dream Griever sort of come to be?
Somewhat. I think all of us got together and we wanted to create really sad, heavy, doomy kind of music, but we wanted to throw our own flavor on it. We all have a bunch of different influences, so I think we were able to really come together and just naturally create something that was our own. Lyrically, the concepts kind of came after the music. How I usually just approach music is usually write all of the melodies and whatnot first, and then the lyrics come after. So I can't say it was really a concept beforehand, but we definitely had an idea of how we wanted the band to sound.
Has there ever been a time, whether it was this or maybe even your work with Dreadnought, has there ever been a time where maybe concepts or a lyric could help dictate the direction of the sound?
Sometimes, with Dreadnought, we definitely start with kind of a general concept, just to get a feel going, so we kind of know which feelings we really want to portray in the music, which I guess in a way you could say Bleakheart is similar in that, our concept, I guess, was kind of sad, slow, doomy, heavy stuff. But with Dreadnought, every album is definitely different. It starts with an overall general kind of vibe that we want to go for, and then as we dig into it, sometimes the vibes maybe even changes depending on what we had created.
Yeah, what I thought was so bold about Dream Griever is I feel like that this is an album that cannot, and I mean it as a compliment, that cannot be approached from different angles. I don't really call it a shuffle friendly, as I call it. I feel like you need to start off with Ash Bearer and then end with the title track, and then you really get the full experience of what Bleakheart is about.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've always been someone that really likes to listen to an album from top to bottom. Every band is different, so some albums can be shuffled no problem, but the way at least I approach music is I really like it to be a full-on tale and to really just grab you in and listen from the full thing as it was laid out to you.
Yeah. With Bleakheart being that, you play with Dreadnought and, was it maybe I consider this a doom supergroup because, in the company of Serpents, it brings their contributions to there as well. Were you all trying to maybe do something that you wouldn't necessarily do in Dreadnought or in the company of Serpents, or does maybe your other projects somewhat influence this in a way?
I think we were all definitely trying to do something different because, JP plays drums in the Company of Serpents and Vermin Womb. Vermin Womb is a grind band, so very much not doom. And he wanted to play guitar, and he wanted to write music that he had never really been a part of, things that he has listened to but never got a chance to actually create. And then for me, I definitely wanted to do something different with this band where I've never really full-on written the lyrics in Dreadnought, but usually I'll come up with the melodies, then Lauren and Kevin are more of the lyricists, and so this was really the first album that I got to fully dive in and write some lyrical content, which was really fun. And I think the difference between those bands, too, I think Dreadnought has is a lot more complex in ways, maybe more melodically complex and structurally complex, and Bleakheart's more complex texturally in a way, so it was just fun to kind of play on in Bleakheart some more simplicity and see what I could do with that.
Mm-hmm. Being that this album is only 5 songs, I don't know, because this is technically doom, so one song is enough to consider it an album at this point. But I don't know if you would necessarily consider this a full-length album or an EP, but either way, do you think that this can maybe serve as a clear representation on what Bleakheart can do in the future?
Yeah, and I do Bleakheart does have some different sounds coming up in the future. I think this is a good representation of us and all of our elements, how the guitar sound, vocal sound, etc. And I don't think we'll sway too far outside of it, but we do want this to be a band where we can do anything we want. So, some things might end up being different in the future. We'll just have to see.
Please don't make happy music.
No. I would never. I'm not a happy music kind of lady. So it'll definitely still be dark and sad, but could throw in some different vibes, play more on the dark wave vibe or something like that.
Well, I've always said that post-metal, like Death Heaven or bands like that, I've always called that evil music for good people. So maybe you have that sort of a vibe in there.
Yeah, and I mean, I like when bands throw in some of the like more major sounding vibes too. I mean, I think it just depends on what you're trying to portray in the sound, and I like when bands push the envelope a little bit and change it up. So it doesn't have to be dark all the time, but I definitely tend to like the sounds of darker sounding music.
Yeah, and of course, dark music is so subjective at this point. Like, I've had people ask me, "Oh, is the music you listen to heavy like Creed?" So, like,
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think people would think that maybe Dreadnought's not that dark either, you know, not all of our music is in that realm, so it really is subjective of, like, what is dark and what brings up those feelings for you.
yeah, I was just reading actually. Everybody knows Third Eye Blind, Semi-Charmed Life, the most classic alternative rock song that's so upbeat. But if you listen to the music, if you look at the lyrics to that song, like it's about a meth addiction. Like,
Oh, wow.
yep, and also.
Yeah, that happens a lot. There's, like, that dichotomy.
Yeah, have you ever watched the Garnier shampoo commercials with that piano, that upbeat piano music?
Not that I can recall. I'm sure I've probably seen it, but...
It was by a song by the Transplants, and which is a hardcore like collaboration. And I mean, the music's just about like the world sucks, everybody deserves to die, and they use the instrumentals for a shampoo commercial. So,
Oh, that's great.
so dark
That's
music
so funny.
always sneaks its way into mainstream somehow.
Definitely, and I like the play between lyrics and music because they can be slightly different, and I think that makes a song really interesting sometimes.
Have you ever written lyrics, or maybe even any form of literature, whether it's lyrics or poetry or stories that maybe I know not so much for Bleakheart and kind of like what you said with Dreadnought as well, but do you always have lyrics written or have ideas written that you present to the band that could help influence other things as well?
Not really. I'm not like the biggest writer. I've been diving into it more because I really do like it as an art form. I've been reading a lot more graphic novels because my partner's super into them, so I've picked up on a bunch that I'm really liking. Usually all of my kind of ideas come post music or during the music. Like, I think I speak better instrumentally in ways. I mean, maybe not better, but just more naturally. I speak through the instruments, and then the lyrics come after I've kind of felt the music and think of how that connects back to some of my inner thoughts.
Do you like maybe approach lyrics differently? Like, is there more personal elements explained in your lyrics, or do you like basically the best way to describe it is like, do you feel that like, do you look for inspiration for lyrics? Like, is there research involved for writing lyrics, or does it come mainly from your own personal self?
It comes mainly from my own personal self. Yeah, I don't really write from, a historic perspective or anything like that. I do want to dive into it, though. I do want to start trying to write more story-based work because I think, it's really interesting and it's a really good way of getting across an idea. This Bleakheart's album was definitely coming more from like a personal space and exploring like the inner machine of the human mind and how weird it is.
Yeah, and kind of what I said earlier, where like I feel like the only way to listen to this album is chronologically. I think maybe you've laid down the groundwork for maybe having like a concept album or a story in the future.
Definitely. And yeah, like Dreadnought's albums tend to be concept albums, but again, like I've written some lyrics for Dreadnought, but not nearly as much as Lauren and Kevin. They're usually more of the concept thinkers, and Jordan as well. And I'm excited, with this band to try and create more concepts that everything can connect to, because I really do love albums when they do have kind of a chronological feel and it all ties in together.
Do you like lyrics to be open to interpretation, or do you like maybe explaining meaning and maybe like try to maybe engage the listener into what the music can be about?
I like leaving it open to interpretation. I like a little bit of both, I think, I'm saying something through it, but it's not just for me. It's a way for me to get some things out. But I think everyone can gain something from lyrics. And that's kind of the beauty of lyrics, is that they can be interpreted in different ways and be kind of like, it just can be subjective to someone and they can mean something for someone else in a different way than it meant for you. And that's kind of the fun connectivity of it.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I've had this discussion with like just straight up like super lyricists that like are always writing and stuff like that. And we've had this discussion like, you don't want to be too dictating. You don't want to tell a listener it's this and only this and you can't interpret. But at the same time, I feel like saying something is just open to interpretation or it's whatever you want it to be. It could sometimes be like a cop out for just not explaining your work. So I feel like there is kind of like a middle ground that you have to meet.
Yeah, and I think like you want to leave things up to interpretation. You also don't want to be misinterpreted, but I think it's important to like at least try and be as clear as you can maybe in what you're saying, but also just let other people kind of take that in and let them kind of relate it to their own life. And it depends on, the content of the song and what kind of band it is and all that.
Can somebody else's perception of the music maybe I don't know if alter is the right word, but maybe like change your perception on the song as opposed to when you first wrote it?
I don't know if it'll fully change my perception, but I do love hearing what other people think because I think it just, I don't know, makes it grow into this bigger thing where it's like, oh, I didn't think about it in that way before. That's really interesting. And like, I just like hearing that and connecting with someone in that way.
Definitely. In order to like get inspired to write, because you've mentioned that like, you need music and stuff like that, but in order to get that creative energy, do you almost like need to be in a certain place at a certain time? Or does inspiration sometimes just come out of nowhere when you least expect it?
It does. It comes out of nowhere a lot of times. And I think I just really like creating, so I feel like I'm always trying to be creative in one way or another. There are definitely like time spans where I don't really have any ideas in my head and nothing's coming out, and then there's some time spans where I just hear things in my head for weeks, and I'm creating a lot. And I don't think it's really correlated to anything going on really in life. It's just kind of the human brain, and yeah, I just try to find inspiration where I can, I guess.
I'd imagine it sometimes strikes at the most inconvenient times, right?
Yeah, I definitely, anytime I'm working in the middle of the day, I usually get a lot of ideas, and I'm working from home now, but when I, was working at the shop that I work at, it would be, 1 o'clock, I'd have all these melodies in my head and be like, and I have to go out and record it into my phone. Like I'd sit in my car and just record all these ideas for 5 minutes and then go back into work.
That's why I've always said I really hope that pilots are not artists, because I don't want them to get inspired like as they're approaching the tarmac. That would be kind of scary. Or like an ambulance driver or something like that. Like, oh, I got to get this guy to the hospital. Ooh, wait, I got this new riff idea.
Ooh, I have this idea. Yeah, I would think that they have like more on their mind at that time,
Yeah, I mean, the human brain is wondrous, especially if you're an artist, is a very, very mysterious thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you ready for the most difficult question of the interview?
Okay, I'm ready.
How do you know when a song is done?
I think you just feel it. I don't know. It, obviously depends on bands. I think for us and for me as a musician, it just has to kind of like it has to like pass its like climax, or the end can be its climax. I don't know. It's like a feel. And I think that's why the bands I play in write such long songs, because it really, we'll think of like, the structure as we are writing a song, and then it just, you kind of feel when it's supposed to end, whether it's like coming down in energy or if it's moving up in energy. You kind of think, okay, do we want the song to end in that kind of energy? And a lot of times it is like feel based, and a lot of times you have to go back and like listen to an entire song or entirely what we've written and be like, okay, does this feel like it's the end of what we're trying to say here or not?
Yeah, I remember Bellwitch, their last album, Mirror Reaper, which was a masterpiece. It's just an hour. It's just an hour and a half long song. So part of me wonders, was that intentional, or were they all just like 5 songs originally and they just couldn't stop it, so they just kept going?
I don't know. I think they maybe were just feeling the music and just decided it flowed better that way. Who knows? I have no idea, but I do love that album.
Yeah. Now, when it comes, do you actually have, like, because I was very impressed with the vocal range and the vocal melody that you incorporate. Do you actually have like a background in classical music? Were you classically trained? I was curious by that.
Yeah, I mean, not vocally. I was classically trained in flute. So I played flute since I was 10, and then I played piano when I was really young, but only for like a couple of years. And then I picked up guitar when I was like 15, but I was in band all through school, and then I studied music at Metro here in Denver.
Okay.
But I just got like a minor in music, and that was for flute as well. And my vocal training really came later in life. Like for Dreadnought's second album, Bridging Realms, that's when I really first got into lessons.
Okay. Well, I'd imagine playing the flute because I feel like, that is in a way, I mean, I guess it's technically not using your voice. It's a woodwind instrument, but I'd imagine that there has to be maybe a similar technique because it requires certain breathing techniques and certain like thresholds and stuff. So maybe like what has training on the flute maybe influenced how you incorporate melodies as well.
Yeah, and even talking about it vocally too. I mean, with flute, there's so much of embouchure that you're needing to use. You know, you need to know how your tongue is, like where your tongue is in your mouth, and how your airflow is, and all that stuff. And it's kind of the same with voice. And so I think playing flute for so long gave me a little bit better of a handle of how to feel where my voice is, because it's such an abstract thing. It's not like you can just put your finger on a guitar fret, you know.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you're saying.
Oh, that. And then as far as like the melody part, I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Well, just because like, do you think about that when you are writing music, like with, Dreadnought and Bleakheart? I mean, I'm sure there'll be like some classical music fanatics who will be like, this is not music. This is not right. This is rubbish. But like, I'd imagine your classical background has to influence this music one way or another, right?
Yeah, it definitely has to influence the way I write, and it definitely influences like how I think about chords and how, especially how like transitions move into each other, like how cadences work and all that stuff. It's definitely influenced my ear in that way. I don't write music down on sheet music that much anymore, because I definitely in Dreadnought and Bleakheart kind of write more with feel, but the tools I've learned from studying classical music and theory definitely help.
Yeah, I've always imagined what some of these like grindcore bands would look like if you transcribed it on music. It would look like a Jackson Pollock painting, I feel.
It probably looks pretty cool. Never done it.
Wow, that you got to try that. Never been done before. It gave you new ideas.
I haven't analyzed grindcore.
I could see somebody really being nitpicky by that and actually taking hours and hours out of their time just to produce that.
Yeah, I mean, that could be kind of cool. I'm sure it's already been done.
Definitely. And the final question I wanted to ask you is being that you are based out in Colorado, because I've interviewed so many bands from Colorado, from Primitive Man to actually in the Company of Serpents as well, and it just it seems like there's such a great scene, especially for this like doom style out there. Is there kind of like, are you guys active like in a scene right now, or is the goal for Bleakheart to kind of maybe like go on the road more at this point when shows could happen again and like go outside the state lines a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, when things can happen again, we'll definitely play shows here, and we do want to tour. We do want to go out a little bit more as well. And yeah, the Denver scene is great. Like, all those bands you mentioned, they're all friends of ours. JP plays with Ethan and Vermin Womb, and everyone's really supportive here, and it's a really good community, and there's just a lot of great music.
I've yet to meet one musician from Colorado who's just in one band.
That is true. We definitely like to share members, and it's just, I don't know, we just all know each other, so it's fun to have multiple projects.
Yeah, I just wondered what it was, because it seems like, again, we were before we started recording, we were saying that both Colorado and Oregon are like the two states where like those are like the doom capitals, and I mean, it might be kind of like a cheesy question, but like, do you think that maybe that has to do with maybe the landscapes out there, or like the environment that you guys are surrounded in? Because I feel like the music that comes out of Colorado is very atmospheric, and it seems like a very atmospheric place to visit.
Yeah, I'm sure the environment influences us all in some way. I mean, it is really gorgeous here, and nature is definitely like gives you various feelings. I think it can be very influential, but I think what's more influential is the people we're around, the music we're around, what you grow up with listening to, and I think just what everyone's creating, I think inspires each other to create the next thing.
I've always said that Colorado, like doom is to Colorado is what hardcore is to New York City.
Yeah, there's a huge doom scene here, and I like that doom has become a larger term too, in that it's almost like, it's interesting because it's almost like it's not even just talking about slow music anymore. It's like branching into all kinds of different sorts of genres. Like, it's almost like doom is now the term for metal. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if you like, because I remember hearing doom like it, because everybody has different gateways for it. Like for me, I got into doom through bands like Catatonia or Paradise Lost or My Dying Bride. But then you have people getting into it with bands like Yob, or then bands, like, I mean, people are now calling Black Sabbath doom, which is, I doubt, what they were thinking of when they were writing. But like, it just seems like doom is such a broad term now that like I feel like all is doomy in a way. You know what I mean?
Totally, because Dreadnought gets called doom a lot, but we're not really a doom band. We're not a traditional doom band. We have slow sections, but we're like proggier, I would say. But it doesn't bother me. You can call the music whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I just think it's interesting how much that term has widened.
Yeah, it's not just, because the songs are 27 and a half minutes anymore,
Right, yeah. It's like they're long, but they're not just like, an Ahab album.
Yeah, I love Ahab. I'm so glad
I love Ahab too.
Oh,
that was a huge influence for me as a kid.
That last album that they put out in 2015, I forgot what it was called, based off of that book. That was so good, though.
Yeah, was that the really colorful cover? Okay, yeah, I'm not as familiar with that one. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, like you'll be so engaged, and then you're going to want to buy the book immediately after you listen to that album. So
sweet, I'll check it out.
You have homework now.
Okay, great.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Is there just anything else that you would like to promote for Bleakheart in terms of like merch, maybe some live stream performances, and please come to New York City when shows are back again?
Definitely, I would love to come back to New York City. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's given the album a listen, who's supported us so far. I think in this time, the only thing that you can do to really support us is to purchase a record if you haven't yet. But otherwise, we're just thankful to have finally, released this album into the world and that people are listening to it, and we're excited to meet everyone once we hit the road.
Well, thank you so much, Kelly. Everybody, Kelly of Bleakheart and Dreadnought, be sure to pick up their brand new EP or full-length album. That's up to you to decide. Dream Griever. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.